Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. Hope everyone's had a good weekend. Sorry about we've had a bit of a technical issue this morning, but we're just trying to resolve it. So we should be up and running in about 2 minutes. So just bear with us, please.
That's it.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. We are finally up and running. I'd like to thank you all for attending today, taking time out of your day to attend. Just so I know that everyone can hear me clearly, would everyone mind? There's a little chat function on the right in the box. Would everyone just like sending a thumbs up or just say they can hear me if possible? Thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Susan. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Angard. Thank you, Hope. Thank you, Mark. And we'll get started. Thank you, Cara, as well. Okay, so I'll tell you a little brief bit about myself. My name is Christopher Leslie. I was sentenced in 2014 for 7.5 years for a conspiracy to supply Class A and Class B drugs. Not my finest moment. Fast forward to 2021. Sorry, this is an outdated picture. I'm the director of 2 social enterprises. I'm also going to be completing my final year of a psychology degree in September of this year. And I'm a Longford Trust Scholar and Hardman Award winner. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague Anton Di Marino, and he will tell you a little bit about himself.
Hi everyone, hope you're okay. Well, I've also done a couple of sentences. My longest one was in 2010 where I got 10 years. After coming out of there, I started getting into I started to work and doing other things, and then I got recalled. And after that time, working with Inside Out Wales, I started volunteering and getting into helping back young people. And after that, I've ended up starting up my own CIC, which now we're a co-director with Chris. And yeah.
So the reason why we kind of created this webinar, it was more to just, whether you support ex-offenders or whether you're an ex-offender yourself, just kind of, we both experienced several pitfalls and the do's and don'ts and kind of the difficulties in getting released. We were both released pre-COVID, so it's obviously a lot different now. So we wanted to write something just for people to, just of our experiences and kind of hopefully giving people a bit of insight into what ex-offenders go through, and whether you're an ex-offender yourself, kind of just to see what's out there and kind of the support, because there's a lot more support available than you might realize. So hopefully it's a quick, pretty short webinar, and just to kind of give you a bit of insight. I would say through my prison journey, I learned a lot of transferable skills that I didn't realize until I ended up in the kind of working world, or till I was released, how important these skills that I learned whilst I was in prison. I'd say one of the main skills I learned was timekeeping. Pre-prison, pre my sentence, I wouldn't say I was the best timekeeper, and learning, discipline, getting up at 8 o'clock, starting work at 9, whatever job you might do in prison, which every job starts at 9 o'clock. It taught me a valuable skill, learning that upon release, of when I did start a job, or even in terms of meetings, and in terms of being prompt, and because in prison you have to attend work, or if you're scheduled to go somewhere for a certain time, you have to be there for that time. And I tell people now that's a massive transferable skill that I didn't realize I had, that I definitely acquired while I was in prison. I don't know if, Anton, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, for me, being organised, getting that same kind of structure, I suppose you learn when you're in prison. If you've been living a criminal lifestyle, I suppose your structure is not the best, and it could be very irrational and stuff. So having that structure and organisation in your week, and especially for what I'm doing now, having meetings and having certain responsibilities where you have to be at places at certain times. So yeah, being organised is a very big part of how I'm being successful in what I'm doing, I suppose. Clearest way to say it.
Even in terms of communication, whilst you're in jail, you need to learn how to effectively communicate with, prison officers, education staff, gym staff. The way you communicate with these people will determine kind of whether you get to go to the gym, or whether you kind of get onto a certain course. And these skills that you won't realize you're acquiring, because you need to communicate effectively and in a positive way, because if it's negative, you won't get the outcome that you want. So for many people getting out, they have these skills. It's just kind of tapping into them, because you've had to use them along your prison sentence in order for you to kind of get by. So I would say verbal communication is a massive skill that people have on release, and it's just kind of tapping into that skill. Anton?
With this, it's getting some financial stabilities, which you will get through employment, but how to balance your income and the money you're getting is I suppose difficult, but obviously it's being responsible, and it's having that person to be able to speak to. Like, I've been very fortunate that I've had good support network around me that have helped me do this. So financially, I come out. I started working, and then I had to go back to my family home. So it gave me a chance to get my finances in order, and I got to be able to save some money up then, so I could finally get my own apartment and get that kind of structure. And this helped me, because otherwise I would have probably come out, and if I lived the same lifestyle before, everything's very easy come, easy go. And being in debt, or not being able to have financial structure, and having that bit where you make sure you save some of your money every week that's coming in, your income. It's so important because you need that, because you never know what could happen, and you need a fallback to something. For instance, I had a van that I used for work, and if I need repairs on it, I couldn't just make money appear from anywhere. So I've saved money for that to happen, and have certain little, I call them, I suppose, pots of money for different things just in case. So it takes that stress off you as well. So if something happens, you're not stressing about, where am I going to get this from or get from, because you've already put that in place, and it does make your life easier. But at the same time, you have to, I suppose the word would be, live within your means. So you can't just go out and spend, say you have £200 wages, £300, whatever the amount might be, and just go and spend that on clothes, or go out and just spend it on a night out or whatever it may be. You have to really structure your money. And I suppose what I said before, being organized, that comes into that with your financial income as well, which will keep you out of debt, and one best thing will keep the stress away from you as well.
I definitely second what Anton said in terms of another skill that I learned while there, and was budgeting. And all prisoners are the maximum you can spend. The maximum you can spend is £25 a week, irrelevant to your financial circumstance on the outside. So it kind of that £25 has got to cover you for your phone credit and for your canteen, which is kind of in essence purchasing your food. So it taught me a real valuable lesson that I need to live within this amount of money. So if I want to ring my family, I need to budget a certain amount. If I want to, buy loads of sweets, it's not possible because I still need to ring my family. So I think that in terms of the budgeting skills that you learn whilst you're in prison, it's another invaluable skill that it's just kind of tapping into that, showing the individual that you've already learned this skill while you've been inside, because you've had to survive on a very limited budget, and you've had to still kind of get by. So it's showing the individual that, look, you've got this skill, and you've already implemented it while you're there. It's implementing it while you're released into society. The Citizens Advice Bureau, a lot of people don't realize you can access this service while you're in prison. You can write to them, they'll write you back in regards to your credit file. They'll contact any creditors that you might have, or any debtors that you might have, and they'll tell them that you're in prison, and you're unable to make payments, and put a stop on any proceedings that are going forward. So the Citizen Advice Bureau is a massive organization that is hugely beneficial to ex-offenders, whether you're inside or you're out. But once you're outside, you can kind of go to them and say, look, this is my financial position, or this is what I have outstanding. You're obviously not able to make payments while you're in prison, so it's having that kind of organization to help you. And we would really recommend this to anyone, any individual that's going through any financial kind of hardship, to kind of tap in and see what they can help you with.
So employment, for me, I was very fortunate when I was coming out after my last part of my sentence. I joined up with a company called Acorns, and they helped get me onto the railway, and helped funded my course, which is, I'll be honest, it was a real big part of my transition. Getting that full-time employment into something where I could potentially have a career, and it gave me that self-belief that I needed. And I think I've always been told how important employment is, and you can get it, and don't put yourself down. And I didn't realize the importance of it, if I'm honest. So the beneficial things for me for employment was that structure again, that organized, that routine, and also it kept me away. I didn't have time to be getting into any other kind of trouble. So, and it gave me that financial stability that I needed, and that financial freedom, to be honest, so I could start doing things and planning to do stuff that I wanted to do without having to think of any other forms of financial gain. It was a good process, also a hard process, because then you have to be accepted by people that you think are looking down on you, maybe because of your criminal record or your criminal past. But really, when you work hard at somewhere, you turn up on time, you show willing, and like I said, you put that great work ethic in, after a while, you earn people's trust, and people actually accept it and actually take the hat off to you as well, because they think, fair play, this kid could have easily gone back down this old road and he's made the choice to go there. So employment for me is a very big part. And if you need help with CVs and signing up to agencies, there are people and there are out there that will help you. I've been very fortunate to be working with Inside Out Wales, and when I first come out, who really helped me through that journey. And also Acorns, who got me onto my railway course, and were really helpful, to be fair, to really put me in the right direction. And when I explained to them things I wanted to do and what would be the best route to go down. So there are people out there that will help. Sometimes you just got to be willing to ask for it, and you'll get it.
I think another point I wanted to elaborate on when it comes to employability is the volunteering aspect. Myself, I volunteered at an organisation at the Pobble Group when I was in my open jail, so that way they kind of got used to me, and the one not got used to me, but they kind of knew me. So when it came time for applying for a proper job, you know, a real position, I already had a reference from themselves because they already knew me, they already knew how I worked, and knew, you know, in my timekeeping and etc. So it was I volunteered for about 3 months, and you know, not many people like volunteering because obviously it's free, and you know, it can be, it's taking time out of your day where, you know, you're not earning, which can be difficult. But for me, that was my route into employment. So for a lot of people that I support, I always do advocate in terms of volunteering, and it just gives the employer that time to get to know you. So irrelevant to your conviction, or you know, or coming out of jail, or how you are, that's secondary to them kind of meeting the person. They're able to work alongside you and see how you work.
So with this bit, for me, it was I had to go backwards a bit, which was not good for my ego. I won't lie. And it not hard for me to swallow, but it was just something I had to do, and it was a process I had to go through. So I went back to my family home, living back with my mum at 35. I was then when I first 35. Yeah, when I come out. And yeah, a bit of a shock to the system, but now when I look back, it was all worth it, and it gave me the opportunity to save money up so I could afford to get my own place, and start renting my own place, and get me back on my feet. So what I'd say is, to a lot of people that do come out, don't get that opportunity, and they have to go to a hostel, and they have to go through a certain process, which I've also done in my younger years. And I didn't take full advantage of it when I look back now. And there's a lot of help there. And if you can use it, it can help you get your own accommodation. So I wouldn't try and rush the process of especially this is talking on myself. When I was in a hostel before, I'd be trying to get out of there as quick as I can. And now I realise I should be staying in there and trying to get stable, and try and go through the certain areas that they have. So to get accommodation, maybe that be a shared house or whatever that might be, a 1 bedroom flat, and then you build off that. So I think just take your time, be patient. You have to be patient with accommodation, because obviously everyone knows it is very short in demand, but it, you can get it, and there are certain things to do, and it is I suppose, a lot of paperwork you have to go through. But like I said, there is help there to help you fill these forms in, and to get what you need, and to make sure you're getting looked after the right way.
Just to kind of expand on what Anton said, the social housing market is extremely saturated at the moment, and with really long waiting lists, you know, it's highly unlikely you're going to be, in fact impossible, they're going to be offered a flat upon release. So, you know, I've always kind of directed people to look at other solutions and other avenues, like, as in renting shared accommodation is one. You know, renting a room in a house until you can kind of save up enough to get your own place. You know, unfortunately, it's the private market now is where a lot of people are being directed towards, because there's no social housing. And what you might find is with people that are newly released from prison, they're kind of used to their own space. A cell is, you know, it's a very small space, and majority is single cell. So, you know, you can imagine, if you've been in there for several years, you're very used to your own space. You're very particular about how you like things and how you want things to be. So it's kind of daunting when you then tell someone, you know, there's obviously no kind of chance of you getting your own flat, so you're gonna have to go into shared accommodation. However, I always like tell people is that it's not as daunting as you think. Shared accommodation, you might only share a kitchen, you know, and there's a high probability that you'll have your own shower in your room, you'll have your own bed, you'll literally just share a kitchen space and a living space. So it's not as bad or as daunting as sometimes people might think. Um, for not Anton and myself were very fortunate that we did have good support networks, but I didn't go into my family. I went to my own. I ended up getting a flat by myself, but I had to work a lot to be able to sustain that flat. And I obviously in while I was in prison, I didn't have any bills to pay. So, you know, all these things come at you at once. And so whether you're an ex-offender yourself or you're supporting someone who's coming out, you need to kind of prepare yourself for these, you know, council tax, electricity, gas. These are fixed bills that need to be paid, that, you know, that there's kind of no excuses for. They won't take any excuses in terms of payment. Whereas you kind of used to not paying these, so they come at you very quickly. So it's about kind of realizing this and supporting a person through this and being like, well, before you get a flat, are you realize of the cost that's implicated in this flat? With shared accommodation, a lot of the bills are inclusive. So I always advocate and say it's a nice stepping stone for you to kind of step from a shared accommodation, then to get to your own flat.
Oh, you're right. I'm just going to show you a quick short video now. Okay, we're not going to show a short video. I'll quickly do a quick talk on regular physical activity. So, the benefits of physical activity, especially with someone that's coming out with their mental state, is very important. For me, especially for talking about myself, and also I could probably talk on the behalf of Chris. Is it's part of our daily routine. Now, for some of you don't know that Chris is recently recovering from being in a coma, and so we've had to adapt his training. So instead of coming to the gym every day doing, I suppose you'd call heavyweight routines and CrossFit with myself, he's changed his workouts to be doing bike rides. He does swimming and he does light-weighted circuits to work on flexibility. This is also to help his mental state. So his mental health is at his prime. With myself, I still train every day, try to do a minimum of probably 40 minutes to 45 minutes. And with COVID kicking in and the gyms being closed, this was a hard time, especially for my transition of where I've had my routine of going to the gym every day. But we adapt. I think one thing that doing prison does give you is the ability to adapt very quickly to any situation. So where things have become quite a shock to most people, living in society now, I say for myself and probably Chris as well, that it's not such a shock where we've been told to do certain things and this is how it has to be. Being in a prison environment, that can happen very quickly. So with the gym side of things, we use parks, go for walks, just really adapt what we're doing, can train, can do a circuit anywhere. I think a great person that's really adapted to this workout is the cell workout. He's been really good with that, and I think that's a great thing to look at because you can actually train in any space, and that's so true. So yeah, your physical activity is so important because it just helps your mental state so much and helps you be able to stay focused on what you need to be doing.
In terms of the benefits of physical activity and someone getting released and continuing that, you know, I would say, I don't know, 60% of people whilst you're in prison, the gym is a massive part of your daily life. You know, it's what you look forward to. It's kind of where you go see all your friends. You know, you're all on different wings, and the only time you'll all get together is at the gym. So you know, it's a really kind of fun place to be. But and without knowing it or knowing it, it has a massive impact on your mental health. Obviously, during COVID, the gyms have been closed in prison, so you can imagine it's had a huge, massive knock-on effect for people being released. and they haven't had that kind of release to go to the gym or see their friends. So as Anton says, I unfortunately was very poorly through COVID, and I've had to kind of get back slowly, and it's kind of realizing your limitations. So I've had to just kind of go for walks, and and having someone kind of prop me up. And I tell these people when they get out, like the gyms are closed, and they're opening back slowly now. But obviously, it's a booking system, and it's very difficult to kind of access gyms at the moment. But there are parks. A lot of parks have got kind of gym equipment in them that you're able to use, and whether it be 10 minutes to an hour, whatever you can do, it's such a bonus to be able to go to a park, go for a walk, clear your head, because getting released now is such a difficult kind of time to be released, and support isn't as available as it was pre-COVID. So things are a lot different. So I always do tell people that we support, try, if you can, just get out and go for a 20-minute walk just to clear your head, and that will kind of give you the benefit of thinking, okay, well, what can I do today? How can I kind of make my day positive today? Fortunately, I've managed to load the video, and I'm just going to start the video now for you all to have a look at.
It is important to care for your mental health just like you would any other physical condition. One of the best things you can do for your mental health is to be physically active. Engaging in regular physical activity can boost energy levels, relieve tension and stress, and promote an overall sense of well-being. The 2018 Physical Activity Guidelines recommend aiming for at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week. That may seem like a big number, but remember, any movement counts, even just a few minutes. Physical activity can be anything from walking and hiking, to yoga, to gardening, or playing a sport. Whatever helps you feel good. The body and mind are closely connected, so when your body feels better, it is likely that your mind will too. Need additional help? The Strive Employee Life and Family Program through ComSite offers confidential counseling, referrals, and much more. This program is available to all active state employees eligible for MCHCP medical coverage and members of their household. Contact MCHCP Member Services at 800-487-0771 for instruction on how to access self-program services.
Hi all, many thanks for watching that. I would please don't access that, send referrals to that American-based company. I have my colleague Anton to thank for that. I very much doubt they get back to you in a prompt manner.
So for me, this was a big part of another big part of my transitional process, having children, and even though I was seeing them throughout my sentences, you're not building that natural, that natural bond up that you should be, that everyday routine of being there for them and being their carer and their provider in the right sense. So it's took me, I don't know how long, it's nearly been 2 years now of getting out, and I suppose the first bit was hard because I'm their dad, my children's dad. But being a dad, saying you're a dad and being a dad, I definitely realise it's two different things, and it takes time, takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of persistence, and obviously, like most other things, you're always learning along the way. But there are other avenues, and I've realised again, if you ask for help and listen to people, and there's advice out there that can and help guide you, and there is professionals out there that can also help you. And there's courses you can do, which I do now myself. and that can just help the way your mindset is and the way you look at things. And you might have questions to just say, what if this happens, or what if that happens? And as long as you're willing to keep an open mind and learn along the way and have the best interests for your children, you won't go too far wrong. And enjoy it, I suppose, for the transitional process, because you're just going through a part of their journey with them and stuff. Especially for me, I've spent a lengthy times away from them through to my bad life choices and irresponsible decisions, and it's something that I want to teach my children not to do, definitely. And it is hard, I suppose, because you have a lot of regret, but I don't think you can have regret because it's already happened. You can't change the past, unfortunately. I would think we always, especially been in positions like myself, wish you can, but you can't change the past, but you can definitely change your future. And that's one thing I do live by, and I believe that whatever you do right now in this moment, well, it's all paying towards that. So what I do is try and get up every day and just make sure I'm doing the best by myself, and by doing that, I'm going to do the best by my family and my children. I'll put you on to Chris and give you a different take on that.
I think in terms of I'm a what you might call a surrogate father. I've got nephews and nieces that I've always been responsible for since they were born, and I think what I'd always kind of tell people is give yourself time in terms of your transition, and don't expect your family and your children, like, for example, to transition as quick as you would. Like, you're still going through a process of change, especially reintegrating back into society. Everything's going to be different. It's not going to be the same as in when you went away, unless you only did a very, very short sentence. So, and don't expect your family to understand that also. Sometimes I've made a mistake of thinking they should understand what I'm going through, and it's not always that simple. They didn't go to jail. Fortunately, they don't know kind of the prison environment and what it's like. Maybe to give you a bit of an example, in jail, you're used to going to your cell and spending time on your own, and I, without knowing it, would go to my room. I'd be with everyone and with all my family, and then I would go to my bedroom, and my nieces started picking up on that. Whereas I thought it was normal, it wasn't normal. Not to them. It was like, why are you going to be alone? But because you spend so much time alone when you're in prison, it's a normality to me. But to them, it was like, are they doing something wrong? So, your transitional process will have an effect on those closest to you, and how kind of it's kind of difficult to kind of word, but you just need to give yourself time and give them time to be able to kind of go through the process with you, and they will be with you. Your support network's going to be around you, and they're there for a reason. They're there to help you, whether they be professionals or family. That they're there to help you. It's more of the fact of it's your transition. It's kind of your way of it's your transition. It's your way of reintegrating into society. Just always see them as a bonus and as a crutch to lean on, rather than a hindrance. If that makes any sense. And
with that is with mine. Mine were very young when I first went in, and obviously they've grown up part it, but they've gone through a loss as well. So, and as they do, because they haven't got that person there, that father, that mother, they haven't got that there with them. So they've missed out on things. So they've had to adapt to cope without this. And I think when you come out, like Chris had just said, I have in the past, personally, I've just expected to come out and it just go back to like I've always been there. And that's not going to be the case for both parties. So for the children, but maybe for the mum, for aunties, for my own mother, my own siblings, and because they've had to deal with coping with you out being there. So it's like Chris said, you've got to just take your time and just be patient and slowly integrate back, slowly transition back into the new person you're trying to be. Because if you have gone through that rehabilitation stage and you want that better life for yourself, you're not going to be, for me, the old Anton that used to be involved in that family environment. You're going to be this new person that you've created, that you want to be, and it's getting to show them that, to get them to trust that again, because you're not going to be that person that comes out and what's going to go back in. You're going to be that person that's going to be out there, that's going to be stable, that's going to be working, that's going to provide, that's going to be able to care for them, love for them, give them all the stuff that they need, that's unconditional, and most all of it's for free. And it's just going to take, like Chris said, it's going to take time, and you just got to keep persistence and keep being there. And by being there every day, and all the time you can be, it will slowly get easier, and before you know it, it'll just be like you haven't ever been away. It just, like I said, it's going to take a bit of time.
Through my job as a support worker, when I got released, I worked at a substance misuse hostel for people that were suffering from substance misuse and drug and alcohol dependence. And so this was based in Wales, so my knowledge is kind of limited at the moment to the Welsh kind of support network around it. There's a hell of a lot of support for people on release, whether or not you have a drug and alcohol dependence. But one thing I'm firmly aware of, it's they're there as soon as an individual is ready. There is support there. It's there for you. It's just a case of you accessing it, reaching out to your support workers or your probation officers, or whoever you're around, for them to send you referrals, whether it be Mind or several other agencies there in terms of support. And it's just a case of you wanting that help. I do realize through trying to trial and error, forcing help on somebody didn't get the best results, or not forcing, but pushing people towards it. Whereas when I left it open for them and I was like, look, the support's here, the help's here, as soon as you're ready, and as soon as the individual's ready for it, then it's kind of, because there's a lot of support in prisons for people that are substance misusers, and in prison it's kind of your chance to get clean, if that makes any sense, and you're able to kind of detox your body from any toxic, anything that you were kind of used to, and come out and kind of start fresh. However, things are then thrown back at you that you can then access again. So I always find it was kind of a more of a mental struggle, like how do I not go back to that life? And then that was kind of the support that we would offer.
I think with this, everyone's on their own journey, especially being incarcerated from them in prison. So it's just giving them the right support for what they need to help them through that part. Obviously, when you get put in prison, that's taken away from you. But also, they can be put on prescribed medication and then have to use a way how to get off that. It's just really the support network, and for people that are dependent, it's just signpost them to the right agencies so they can get that right help and that right support again. But again, it's always that same one I keep saying, they're going to have to ask for the help. If they don't say anything, then it is very hard, unless there is other signs of, say, self-harm or something like that, where people can step in and realise it's through drugs and alcohol dependency. But if they're not asking for help, it is very difficult. So that's the first step. And once they ask for help, then obviously there are agencies, and like I said, can be signposted to these agencies and organisations to get them some structure. So when they are released and making that transition of release, that they can get that help they need to stay clean. To be fair, to stay off alcohol and stay off drugs.
We always kind of wrap up with attitude and thinking and behavior, and that these are the kind of what we found were the main components of transition and of you change. And prison can kind of, your attitude can completely do a 360 when you go to prison. You might think certain things are acceptable before, and once you get to jail and you spend a bit of time in jail and you start reflecting on your actions, your attitude, myself and Anton, completely changes. And what you think's okay is no longer okay. And if anything, you're so embarrassed that you used to think that was okay and that was all right, a good way to act. So a person's transition is, their attitude is one of the main things that will change. So I would say if you support someone, or whether a family member or anyone close to you that's going through transition, their attitude that you're probably used to is definitely not them no more, and allow them that time and space for you to understand that they no longer have that attitude, they no longer have that thought process, and their behavior is going to reflect that. Sometimes you'll find, well, I found that people still think I have the same behavior and same attitude and same thinking, and then it kind of, you think, well, what more can I do to prove to you that I've changed? And then I realize that it's not a case of proving. Your actions are proof enough, if that makes any sense. Your actions will prove that your thinking and your attitude has changed completely. I know, Anton, if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think with me, it's talking to me personally, it's knowing that feeling certain things about certain situations is actually okay. But just because you feel a certain way and have these certain emotions doesn't mean you have to act like, I suppose, I would do in the past, or you don't have to come across the same way. And it's being that I'm now, I suppose, emotionally responsible, if that makes sense, to know for that. Just because something gets me, I suppose I'm not happy about a certain situation or could make me angry, doesn't mean that has to act in a result into a violence. I understand that now, where before I never. For me, for that, I'll say, Chris is well aware, I had counselling, which helped me really get my thinking in order, which helped me control my emotions, and then that helped my thinking process, which then helps the result into my actions, and then my actions speak louder than words, as they say. So now, no matter how my emotions are and my thought process can what's the word I'm trying to use, makes more sense of it now, I suppose. So I don't think irrationally anymore. It's not I feel angry, I think angry, I feel angry, sorry, I think something, and then it turns into violence. That's not what happens. If something makes me angry, then it's made me angry. But my thinking process is, well, I'm not happy about that, but that doesn't matter, and I rationalize it in a certain way, and that helps my behavior be the actual correct behavior now, which gives me a much better life, and I'm not in no trouble anymore, and it's how I've always supposed to have been. But I said, for me, personally, before I had the counselling, I understand the reasons behind it all now. And I think through a lot of people in prison, through even just being in the prison environment, talking to someone to help you realise and understand your emotions, and that help you get a clearer thought process, will then result in your actions being a lot more just better, I suppose, as I can say. You just, like it says in the screen, our thoughts, beliefs, and ideas about something. So it's all adding up. So if you're feeling a certain way and your emotions are a certain thing for all the time, then every time certain things happen and you feel this way, then the result's going to be the same. So you're going to act in a certain way. So if you build up a habit of feeling mad and angry of certain things all the time, then and you've used violence or fighting or something, or being aggressive verbally, whatever, then that's always going to keep happening. So it's learning, I suppose, relearning the right way to deal with things, and it just makes life so much easier. At the start, you think it's hard, but it just makes life in so many different ways. I could probably speak about it all day because it's something I'm quite passionate about, and realise it's been a very positive thing for my life, and how it's turned my life around in the way I act and the way I do stuff and the way I handle situations where before, even to a certain extent, Chris could probably tell you on behalf of my mum, that certain things have happened, and she said to him, I didn't expect him to deal with that situation like that. I can't believe he's not gone back to the old way he did, and she was happy about it, and she was very proud about it, and it was a good moment, and it just shows you that it can be done. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to be the way you've always been. You can change, and you can make that transition into to living a good life and being successful and being positive.
Thanks for that, Anton. We've actually come to the end of the webinar, but please feel free to kind of ask us any questions that you might want to ask. We wrote this to kind of talk about our own transition and how we could help, and we often get asked, like, what made you change, and what made you make the transition from a criminal to a productive member of society. And You know, like, is there a formula? I have to tell people, no, it was just a case that we just wanted to make a change. We didn't want to live that life no more. And we both kind of reached out through different and found all different agencies that would help along that way. And I think collating that together and being able to kind of speak to people and be like, well, you can go here for help with this and go here for help with that. That kind of got us to the position that we're at today. But the main thing had to come from us, and the change had to come from us. We had to want to make the change, and then it was the support around that change that kind of led us to get to the vision that we're at today, which we can both say we're really proud of ourselves, and we're just making strides forward. You know, we wasted a lot of years involved in crime and prison, and I used to see them as wasted years, whereas now I don't. I see them as years I learned to grow. Well, years I grew and I matured, because I was very mature before. But rather than ramble, is there any questions that anyone's got that you'd like us to answer? Don't all come at once, that is. But I'm also gonna leave our emails in the chat box. Yeah, Alexander, feel free. Please don't hesitate to drop us an email should you have any further questions or in regards to anything. I'll put, hi Susan, I'll put a link up to Acorn's website now in the chat box. They're a really, really good organization. Really, 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 really helped with Anton transition and helped with, you know, lots of people getting out of jail and offering them courses, helps get courses. Hi Alexander. In terms of, I'm going to take you to transition into work. It took myself. I was already volunteering. I was a student when I got released. I got released into my first year of exams. But in terms of work, I got released in May and I started work in October. But I had to go through the DBS process, which is, as you might well know, it's quite a difficult process. Yeah, 2 to 3 months is a reasonable time. Sometimes your DBS can kind of hold up you starting work. I know I've got friends who've applied to work straight away on getting released, but their DBS has taken a month to come back, and they can't start work without the DBS. So there's other factors kind of involved. But yeah, I would say 3 months maximum for myself. I think Anton.
Yeah, when I was released in November, and did my course, railway track PTS, and I started first week of January. So yeah, about roughly that time, and that was very fast. I was quite fortunate. So yeah, 2 to 3 months is. I'd probably say 2 to 3 months would be. Depends on what job. It depends, obviously, if you've got some kind of like. It depends what area you're trying to get into. Do you need to get a qualification before you start working? But 2 to 3 months would be roughly the time, I'd say. But it could be longer. It's hard to say because it just depends on what job it is, and what you want to do. I think for most lads getting out of prison, I do say that try and look for something maybe. I wouldn't say lower what you want to do, but just try and get into work. And then once you're in work, it's easier finding other kind of other jobs. But as long as they're willing to work, there is work there. I promise you, there is work there. It just might not be doing something that you at the start think, oh, this is what I want to do. But work's work in my eyes, and if you're getting money for doing something, then that's better than not. And yeah, that's what I'd say. So yeah, 2 to 3 months probably. What I would say you wouldn't be saying, but it could take longer.
in terms of advice for prison leavers looking for work and repeatedly getting knockbacks due to their unspent convictions, I've found this a lot in a lot of the people that we supported, that it unfortunately is the case. As much as it's illegal to kind of, you know, prejudice someone for they're having a conviction, it does happen. But one thing I've found is that with a chap I was supporting, he would go to the interview, so get an interview, have a fantastic interview. After the interview, then when it came time for DBS, then he would kind of, you know, he wouldn't tell him, but it would come back on his DBS, and then he would obviously have to present it. So I said to him, why don't during the interview process you discuss it and say, look, you know you're going to DBS me for this role, after kind of towards the end of the interview, and say, I have got a criminal conviction. This is what I'm criminal convictions for. And one thing I always said to someone, your conviction is always going to be in the past. It's not going to be a current. It's not, you know, you haven't just committed a crime of being in prison. So it's always a past offence. So you can always say, well, since my offence, I've done this, or I've changed this, because there'll be something about you, why you've changed, why you're at the interview, or why you're even going for the job. I would, you know, in terms of, and also looking for kind of friendlier employers, you might say, who are kind of open for applications from people with past histories of being incarcerated or having a conviction. And there were loads, more than I even imagined. Virgin being a main employer, you know, you can kind of work your way up to Virgin to management. With a conviction, they do not hold it against you. There are a lot, but it's kind of, it's unfortunately trial and error. But I definitely find that having that open conversation as early as possible with the employer, and then it saves the kind of disappointment of, you'll kind of know then their reaction to it. But whether they are friendly, they might turn around and say, oh, you've got a conviction, and then you prepare yourself for that letter of, oh, you know, we're sorry you haven't made it through, whatever. But you give the employer there's also that kind of, you know, benefit that they might turn around, well, this guy was really honest, and, you know, he came to the interview, had a fantastic interview, and he told us about, you know, his past and what's going to come up, because your DBS is your DBS. It's going to show. I always tell people it's going to show it, so you're better off discussing it as early as possible. I was fortunate or unfortunate, whereas I had my first interviewing for a job or for volunteering whilst I was in prison. So they obviously knew who they were interviewing then, but I still had to have a 3-hour interview on release, and I still had to discuss my DBS, but I discussed it in the interview. So anything that came up, I was like, well, this I did then, this is, you know, this is what I did, and since then I've done this, and this. But if there's anything you'd like to expand to me on more, please feel free. Please don't hesitate to drop me an email. Is there anything you want to expand on, Anton?
Is there any more questions?
We'd both like to thank all of you for taking your time out today and attending. This is our first webinar we've done since unfortunately I got ill, well, for about a year actually. So please forgive us for being a bit stop-start. We've got several more webinars that Inside Out are bringing you to this week in regards to disclosure, housing, disclosure, housing, positive disclosure, you know, kind of rebranding yourself. So please don't hesitate to kind of, they're all free. And if you know anyone that will benefit, please don't hesitate to kind of drop them a link and ask them to register. Fantastic. Thank you for all attending, and look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.